30% of the men coming in wouldn't even want sex. They just wanted to sit on the chair with me, have me being either held by them or I'm holding them, and we just have a conversation of what's going on.
Because human beings at their core, they want to be loved.
They want to be loved.
Exploring the human journey.
My name is Sherry Williams, and I was a sex worker. The shift and change for me in my life began one early morning standing on a rooftop in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was barefoot, looking out over all these city lights, wondering what I was going to do with my life, where it was going to go. I knew I needed to change. I had a close call on a particular night with a couple guys almost raping me, and I realized I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to be somewhere different. And that ended up taking me not out of the trade, because that was too much to take. I went into a brothel and lived at a cat house. It was an experience that gave me relief. Somebody had my back for a change. I could really relax. I fully support everything that they do. I mean, it's an amazing trade and it is full of caring. I know for a fact that trade also trained me in that situation with a really caring and compassionate heart, no matter who the person is. There's no bias. For me, it was a total lack of self-worth when I started out in life. There was molesting, there was loss of value of who I was in my household, and it took me down this soul journey that I carried until I turned the mirror of what I call tough love onto myself. And when I looked into that mirror and I saw that I was worth doing something that was for me, and that vision was for me, and that shift was for me, and it came from my heart, and that began the whole next part of my life's journey.
Hi and welcome. I'm so glad you joined us today. Sherry and I have been having a good conversation, and I thought you would want to hear it. Sherry was a sex worker, and she has a very unique perspective on life and on what it is to be human. And Sherry, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your story. The thing that I really liked about what I heard from you is this idea of self-worth. And for you, that's kind of what it all boiled down to.
It came about through an epiphany that I had, and that how my life had stacked up to a certain point had kind of led me to believe certain things about myself. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand the communication that can happen within one's own body, between us and our soul, between us and whatever else is flowing through us. And so it became really a focal point and an enlightenment moment, we'll call it, when I said, I have the ability to look at this differently. I have the ability to feel this differently and move through it differently.
Now, your story impacted me. I've heard you speak about it. You start at a young age. You're given a narrative. Let's kind of start there. You know, share what you're comfortable sharing and give us some context of how your human journey has evolved.
Sure. Well, I'm on this journey now because it's important that it be stated, and there's some uncomfortable pieces that have to come out, and I think it's of worth. So I'm here to share my story, and it started around the age of 4. I was molested by a family member, and it created a sense of use of who I was. It wasn't like something I really thought about it as a 4-year-old. I just did it. I gave of myself. So that started the first point of being used and to serve. Later on in my life, I had episodes where I realized that I had no value anymore because of an incident that happened where I lost my virginity through the use of words. And it brought about the looks on my parents' face is really what did it.
So you got to tell us a little bit about that story. When you say virginity, I think of a physical thing. When you say words, give me some context for that.
Yes. So I was called home from work. I was 16 years old, and my mother called my work. I was doing a secretarial job, and she's like, "You come home right now." I walk in the house. There are two men who I don't know standing in our living room. I begin to get a story from them. It looks like they're trying to crack a case that they can't solve, and I become basically a pawn. Through their words, they tell my parents that I am a train lady.
A train lady?
A train lady. I've never heard of that term.
Like you work on trains?
Right? Well, I looked at them and I was like, I don't know what that means. And my one of the detectives explained that it is a person who has sex with multiple men at a time.
Oh my God, and you're 16.
Yes.
And was that your lifestyle?
No, I was still a virgin.
So then that's a lie. Then you weren't. Okay. So why did they implicate you? Why did they tell you that?
All I can figure is they were trying to bring up either anger with me, so I might say something that I didn't even know, to further their case.
Oh. So they're just trying to pin something on you, or they're trying to figure. What were they trying to solve? What were they trying to do?
Well, there was some gang, or I'm using that word. They didn't use that word there. And they really didn't get too involved into it. They wanted to know, did I know things about people and actions that we're taking on at high school?
So you were a high school kid. So what did they do or say to you then?
Well, they said that, we know you were participating as a train lady. Then we got that explanation out. And no, I didn't do this and I wasn't a train lady. The implication was that I was having had sex. And I looked at my parents and I said, no, I haven't had sex. And both my parents, almost in unison, well, police don't lie.
Oh, wow. It wasn't the 2020s at that point in time.
Yeah.
A different perspective.
And I was shocked. My mother was looking at me with, yes, I should have known better. And my father with such disappointment on his face. And that really crushed me because he was my dad was my support in many ways. He saw how the hot mess of our family was in the actions and reactions of things. So my mom would do things and then he would come in and try to, pacify everything down. And it was a point where I felt like I was always the one that was causing them to fight because my mom would attack me and then he would have to come in. And so in this moment, seeing his face, looking at his daughter who just, crushed his heart, that was why I say those two detectives took my virginity, because having not had sex and being a virgin.
So you felt like you were like, oh, you took my innocence and my virginity. Now you're saying I am an active person in whatever this investigation was. And
beyond that, it was the look of disappointment that took my value from me. So here I had already. And let me say, too, that, of course, my parents, well, maybe not, of course, but my parents didn't know about the 4-year-old sexual abuse from the family member. I had kept that quiet. It was, a shame, a protection, like I already knew what life was like at home, what would happen, a sense of caring for the family member who was the one doing the molesting.
That childhood trauma is so important in our human journey, and we have these core wounds that we get as kids. Usually the first one's in that 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Yours apparently is a 4-year-old trauma molestation. And then sometimes in our teen years, 14, 15, 16, there's another thing. It sounds like you're right on schedule with your trauma and core wounds.
Yep, right there.
Wow.
Right there.
Wow. And I'm not laughing to make light of it.
No.
I'm laughing because we're all these humans that are messed up in some respect.
But Dave, that's exactly why I'm here, because there's such a dialogue of expectation that when these things happen, it's almost unrecoverable in some people's minds. And
they live with those, and it empowers them to be a victim.
Yeah,
or whatever
and
that
something
is.
happens as an adult, and they go, well, it goes back to this because I had this happen to me, when I was young. And I say, yes, that's valid and true, but I also have experienced what I call the expansion that comes from having had that. And it did set a certain pathway of me saying yes to doing things that perhaps if those actions hadn't happened, I wouldn't. So after...
Oh my God, so that's shaping your journey then.
Absolutely. And after the detectives on that event, I basically scheduled to lose my true virginity.
Oh, you're like, okay, I'm going to show you.
What do I have to lose?
What do I have to lose?
Right? So,
were you looking forward or dreading that experience?
I think it was a dread.
You're 16, you're like, ooh.
Yeah, I really...
Did you have a willing candidate at the time?
Yeah, I had a guy I was dating. He was going through his own hot mess at his house, which this is where I say it's the unfortunate meeting of two teenagers who have experienced various things, and it seems like the big fix is let's just get married and get away from the craziness of the parents.
That'll fix
everything.
Yeah. And you're
all our
16?
wisdom.
Is that, or 17?
No,
or
we got married
18?
at 18.
Okay. Oh, you waited till 18. Well, good for you.
Because I couldn't get sign off. It would have been a whole event. Yeah.
Well, I say that I got married at 19 because I was in a different religious paradigm that if you're with a girl and you want to have sex with her, then you have to be married. And so that was my journey. So I get that young thing.
Yeah. And it was so in the years from the detectives to losing my virginity with this particular guy to going and almost seeing the path. Would I have married him in any other instance? No, is the answer that I know, because we didn't have this passionate love. We weren't like, oh, you're my high school sweetheart and I want to spend the rest of my life. For me, I was helpful to him, right? Just in the nature of who I am. If he was needing something to be done, I could take care of it.
Because you're now a person that wants to please, and you're supposed to help other people, especially if they're men, because you've been given that physical narrative through your childhood.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a mind job.
Yeah, so here I am now married to this hot mess who was already under parental tough love. They had bought him a new car. Granted, it wasn't a fancy car, but still, they bought him a brand new car. He totaled it.
Oh. It's kids too. It's just bad drivers.
He was dabbled with various drugs. I really didn't play around too much with drugs because I found I didn't like how I felt with them. But all the same, I did play. And he got under tighter and tighter restrictions as we moved towards the time that we actually got married. And then everything just went.
So you got married at 18.
Yeah.
Too young marriage. And 2 core wounds. It's part of this whole crazy process.
Let's just get married, because that just makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So you're a young person. Your childhood, you've been given a narrative. You're 16. You're told you're this thing. And you're like, well, I might as well just be this thing. So now you get married to this person. You're both young. You're 18. And then you live happily ever after and retire in the Caribbean. Is that what happened?
Hot mess of surreal days and nights is what came about.
All right. So it was a little tumultuous, you're saying.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and continue that same perception of this is who I am and this is my place in the world. So just do what your place is. Be of service, be of use, help where you can. So that's kind of where I went, even though where he was asking was not the greatest of requests.
Well, give me some detail now, Sherry.
Yeah. We came to a point that the drug addiction had really become a thing. So not only was he doing the drugs, I was regularly doing the drugs with him. Came to a point we needed money to pay rent. And him and one of his buddies had this great idea. I know. Let's take Sherry to the local strip club. We'll enter her into amateur night because the prize is $250.
Holy smokes. And this is in the 80s?
Yeah, this would have been around 83, 84.
Okay, yeah. 250 is a
perhaps.
bigger number in the 80s than it is
Right.
years later, sure.
Right. So, yeah, so that was the start of
And so what happened? Did you win?
saying, I did.
To being a winner, Sherry. To being a winner in life.
Yes. And the doors that it opens.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So is it a dancing thing or a stripping? You were there. You were.
It was a stripping thing in this facility. Did it lead to other things? Yes, it did, because when I say it opened doors, it really did open doors to. It's not that far of a step to go from being a stripper to doing a few more things to get what's needed. And so the request ended up coming down, to do things with my body with the drug dealer to get us drugs.
And so then there's a sex for drugs and money.
Sex for drugs, blowjobs
exchange.
for drugs. And he being my husband then would offer me.
Oh my God, that is savage.
To do that. Yeah.
So he's like, hey, do me a favor, go do him. And then you're like, oh, okay. How did that make you feel?
I still remember, almost with a clarity, what was going through my head during the blowjob is, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
It was a very real, like out of body reflection on the act and why I was doing the act.
You didn't feel like you were at cause, even though you were doing it. You didn't. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
You felt like you were doing it for other people rather than it wasn't your choice.
It was not my choice. It was not my choice.
Yeah.
And I know that now because I didn't listen to myself back in those days. It was, you just do what's asked. You just do what's asked.
So you're in that old programming still of, this is how it's supposed to be.
This is how it's supposed to be.
So what happens next in this? Are you, so you're finding yourself, you're in a strip club, you're performing sex acts, you're exchanging money or drugs or whatever.
Right.
What happens next?
As the addictions, they didn't really increase. They just became more prevalent on a frequency level. And my husband would get overdosed. So it started, he would just kind of pass out and I couldn't wake him up. And,
is this like opiates or something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we were doing cocaine.
Cocaine. That's an upper. So how did he pass out? Did you just get exhausted?
He would do too much. And it was, what I learned is it was just under the level where the extreme overdose. So the next step that happened is he started seizing. And so it was this garbling, frothy, contorted, and many times the police would show up because there was other things happening around us. And so I would have to, I'd hid his body in a closet one time while he was seizing. I drug him into the woods and kind of covered the bushes around him, and I just kind of hunkered down.
You drug him into the woods. How did you physically do that?
We were outside partying at the time, and I just grabbed his legs and pulled.
Oh my God. That's savage.
And he's 6'2".
Oh my God. So I have this vision of you and being a petite individual grabbing legs with all your might.
Yeah. You do what you have to do when you're
I hope he got rash on his back for that. Fucker.
Yeah. I don't remember. What I remember started happening, and the disbelief that resonated through my entire body was, he came out of an overdose. He came out of these seizures, sitting on the bed. He's got, froth on his face. God. And he and just glazed eyes. And he's glazed eyes and he's like, and he reaches for another hit. I've just witnessed everything. He doesn't remember any of it. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you just were in convulsions, frothing. Yeah. What the hell are you doing? You need to stop doing this, Yeah. And he's like, I just want another hit.
Oh my God.
And so these were moments that I've mentioned to you data points.
I love that. Make sure you give presence to data points because that is such an important part. I love the soul journey. That's all this is about, for me, everything's about the soul journey and data points. Explain.
Yes. So I have currently, at that place and time and year, I had data points that were set. So I have a data point of, I'm here to serve. That was when I was molested from the age of 4. I'm here to serve.
Did that happen? Was it a one-time event or was it a multiple? Did it happen
was a
for
multiple
years?
event.
Okay.
It was a multiple event. So I have that data point, and then I have the data point where my parents didn't think a whole lot of my intelligence, let's put it that way. And so there was periods of time from 10 to 13, 15 that, you're stupid. You're not creative.
Oh, no.
As I got older, I think I mentioned college, and just because all my other friends were like, I have to get these grades, I have to take these classes so that I can get into college. And so the question came up, it's like, am I going to college? And the reply, which I also will always remember, and I've called bullshit too since then, because I've learned differently, is you're too stupid. Learn to type. Those were the exact words.
You're a girl and girls type. That was
Girls
the
type,
narrative.
yeah.
Sure. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So data point.
Yeah.
I'm stupid. Let's go with that. And then I have lost my value. Data point based on the conversation with the detectives. Carry that forward to me willingly having sex with this guy because I've no longer a value. I'm meant to serve. This person's in my life, so this must be where I need to go. Data point. In the midst of our marriage, as I am stripping, basically whoring out my services for drugs, to rescuing, protecting this man who I had done nothing but give my body and my soul to, had created its own data point. Now, interestingly, we had been partying for a few days, and as I said, my husband was 6'2". So picture Jesus as a biker.
Yes, Jesus as a biker.
Jesus as a biker.
Okay.
It gets better because you
Okay.
get to picture Jesus differently here in a minute.
Okay.
So Jesus as a biker, he would wear his leather vest. He had fried boots, the long Levi jeans. He had that long walk. I mean, you could recognize him from a mile away. He had that distinctive walk, right?
Vibe.
And he had, every once in a while, he'd wear one of those leather suede brown hippie hat kind of things. But he had a motorcycle. And so we'd been partying for a few days, and I'm in the front room, and he walks out from the back room of our little trailer.
Wait, you lived in a trailer?
Yeah, we lived in a trailer.
I've lived in a trailer too.
Oh.
All right.
Woo.
Two trailers, Sherry.
Yes, 2 trailers. How about 2 trailers and roaches and mice
Oh my God.
and an ant,
So you,
and the repo guy banging on the door to get the furniture back
my
that you
God.
rented. Do you remember the rental furniture places? I don't even know if they're still around.
yeah, I think they are. So it's a great industry. Some people need that. Other people get taken advantage of by it. So
So I'm in the front of the trailer, and he comes walking out in a matching bra and panty of mine.
Explain.
6'2", long and lean.
Okay.
I'm high as a kite, and I'm going, damn, he looks good.
Yes, he looks good.
Long legs, lean hips. Okay, let's ignore the beard and the hairy legs, but I was high, I was high.
Sure.
So that thought came through me, but then really quickly after that was like, what the heck is going on? What the heck's going on? And he came out as gay.
Oh, okay.
Biker, gay.
Oh, and this is in the 80s.
This is in the 80s.
So,
Tough time.
And you're a biker in the 80s and you're gay, and that's
Yeah.
probably a tough situation for him to be in.
Extremely. How it would have impacted him in his life would have, it could have gone to either extreme. He could have got his ass beat up for hanging out with men who were homophobic, basically, to end up serving on himself. So his next request after he announced this was he wanted to stay married. He wanted me to be the cover.
You're the beard. You're the cover.
So he could do his thing.
Oh, wow. How did that make you feel?
There was an almost instantaneous moment where the chest constricted. I felt he was asking me now to give up my life.
Oh.
And all of those other things, when you add them up, I was doing more or less for him. Yes, I was partaking of the drugs, but I was living the life to make it work for him.
So you weren't in your authentic truth then. You were doing it for someone else.
For someone else.
Yeah.
For someone else. And this was this humongous epiphany that came upon me in that moment where I turned tough love and I put it on me. And I said, when is it tough enough, Sherry, for you to follow your hope, for you to continue for a vision of something that you want different than this? Because it was obvious I had been doing everything in my power to create a life for us. I carried his life basically in my hands, his life or his death in my hands by all of those actions. And I realized in that moment that I had to set him free, and it wasn't because he was gay, it was because he was traveling this path that he needed to travel. And I had really no place in it. So I had to free him in order to free me.
Oh, it's a beautiful point. Because he had to be in his authenticity of who he was and his sexual orientation. I guess we can say, well, good for him. I mean, at least he came clear and said, this is my truth. And it probably wasn't easy for him to tell you. He probably had to think about it. And maybe in a way, he was trying to... Maybe as he liberated him... No, he didn't want to liberate you, though, because he wanted to keep you...
I don't think he thought I'd say no.
Yeah.
I don't think he thought I'd
say no.
So
did you say, yeah, I'll stay married to you?
I shut my mouth that night. I was too high. My mind was going everywhere trying to figure out what... Because he was also... I mean, we had a thing that I understood, that it was safe in its lack of safety, but it was familiar. And I had never lived on my own. So if I was going to do this...
Familiar, comfortable.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do this...
So if I was going to do this, it was going to put me out there on my own, making my own choices, figuring my shit out, and I had no flipping idea what that would end up being.
So then there's the I don't know what to do, and so if I stay here, it's not what I want, but at least it's comfortable, and I'm safe or whatever.
Yeah. So I say, it wasn't tough enough for me when I had to strip to pay rent. It wasn't tough enough when I did things I never thought I would do to get drugs. It wasn't tough enough witnessing the horrific events of an overdose. And I can tell you that all of those things cellularly set themselves in me to be dealt with at a later point in time. But what I realized was it finally had gotten tough enough that he was now asking for my life, which put things in a different perspective in me. So we ended up cutting ties, and I went to a tech school for drafting.
Whoa. Okay, now I don't want to leave this because you're in a space which you don't feel authentic about. So you had the courage to say, bye, this doesn't work for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay, good. That's at least that's like a step of self-empowerment there.
It was, and it was the first of what would be many. I had to rise myself up and be someone that I had never had to be for myself. Like I would fight for him and his causes because I felt like I had to and I could.
So
but to actually
for him.
Fight for my own purpose, for my own vision, had been something I had never done or even imagined that I could be successful at.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. So you go to tech school. Now that's something that you want to do. Sherry wants to go to tech school. How'd that work out? Did you get a great job and have a wonderful career and retire?
Yeah, right. No. I went through school. let's give myself a data point at this point, because I was a high school dropout. This would entail some math, and I was actually a really good drafter. This was still back in the 80s, and we didn't have AutoCAD then. We didn't have computers like we have now. So it was line drawing with protractors and angles, and I learned that I can color within the lines and be okay with that. I learned that I can draw amazing things and conceptually put things on paper. So I did. I got a really nice job out of school. The job lasted a little bit, and then they were cutting down with contracts, so they asked me if I'd move to Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah. And so I'm by myself. I'm like, this is it. Okay, yeah, sure. I'll pick up and move to Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay, so now I feel another story coming on. Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, so then your life was happily ever after. What happens next?
Oh, Las Vegas, Nevada. The city that never sleeps.
Yeah.
The city of sin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have an amazing job. I am a fun, interactive young woman living there. And I start meeting people. Some people I'm even meeting through my boss, because he has connections within the city. Our office was literally doing the structural steel drawings for all of the casinos. Not all of the casinos.
Sure, but you were involved in the casino
industry. We were
industry.
involved in building casinos. So Steve Wynn would come in our office, and we had power people that would frequent. And I was a fun, vivacious woman in the office. And my boss loved women. And so he treasured women in a nice way.
Wow. Nowadays we'd say he's a creep, but no, he liked women.
He loved the
did he pat you on your ass at work, or did he?
No.
Did you get Me Too'd those days?
Not from him.
Okay. We'll get into that next. Go ahead. Okay,
no,
drafting.
He was a really, he saw the value of the feminine energy that could work with the male energy. So we had like competitions, I can't remember what, a corporate challenge. And so we would participate as a company in the corporate challenge, and they had to have male and females on the different teams. One of the teams was bass fishing. Right? So there's the big lake, Lake Mead up there.
Yeah.
And so he asked me, would I be a female fisherman? And it it was fun. I met all these people, started like going out at night and staying up later, hitting the lounges, just really taking in all that Las Vegas has to offer. So take tourism times 10, right?
Wow.
I could go into a bar and the bartender would know me. I would come into work a little bit later because I was up late, and my boss says, it's okay, Sherry. That's what Las Vegas is. You just come in here, get your work done, and everything's going to be okay.
Because you were utilitarian in the fact that you were schmoozed with his clients, and you were fun to be around. Okay.
Right. So then it became 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd start rolling in.
Oh.
And 11 o'clock.
Oh, my God.
Then it was, let's have a conversation with the engineer and have him leave Sherry notes, because I'm kind of starting to walk in the office when everybody else is leaving the office. It really did get to that point.
Wow.
And what did I do with that? Well, ultimately the boss came up and he said, this has been really fun, but I think you might have a different path. And I don't think this is working for us anymore.
Wow. So the guy that encouraged you to be vivacious and outgoing, and then you go down that path, now he's like, this isn't working out.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was also, think about it, I had really, for all the partying and the experiences with the husband, I was still pretty sheltered. I had never lived on my own. I had never experienced life without the control.
So you're free.
I am free.
So you're having fun.
Woo!
Yeah. So what happens so he let you go, then what happens?
He let me go. Well, I had already started meeting certain clientele, we'll call it, who...
A drafting clientele? You got another job in drafting?
No. No, these were clientele who were doing business that wasn't really legal, selling drugs, and they would hire me to come and dance. So remember, I was a stripper at one point.
Ah, so you're using your skill set.
Right, so that must have come up in a conversation sometime.
I imagine so.
And so it became lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
It became lucrative, and then that particular drug dealer ended up moving away due to circumstances of his own. But I was now then immersed. I had some connections. I had been in the business before when I was married, so I had a bit of courage with that. I no longer had the job, and what was I going to do with this? Well, I'm going to become a prostitute. I had enough connections in the club world that people coached me on how it went down. I got myself a pager.
A pager, awesome.
Pager. I got myself a pager.
Beep, beep, beep.
Right?
Yeah.
You remember the zero? What was it? 07734. You turn it over and it says, hello.
Oh, that's so good. Oh my God, I forgot all about that. Oh, it's so good.
So I became the person that was at the nightclubs, dancing, having a blast, because I do love to dance. I'd be dancing, and then, look at the pager. I'd have a system where I would either call the person who was paging me, or it was the phone number from a bartender friend.
Oh,
because
so you have connections then. So
that
people are sending you business.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it became the dialogue of my life, is to just have this pager, answer calls, go dance, sleep in late, have a few close calls, start realizing things aren't going the way I want. These aren't necessarily the choices I thought I'd be making. Back when I said, I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to do my thing in my way. It's going to be so different. Until it's not so different, because we come back to what we know. And I was a woman free in the world who had been basically confined up until that point in her life. So I have an experience where I am standing on a rooftop.
Yes, give more context of that, because I got to hear that story. So tell me, what's happening in this incident?
I'm standing on this roof. I'm barefoot. I am shaking, pondering life, because I had been in a penthouse of the same casino. And there were these three guys. We were partying. Things got kind of rowdy. And I had a kind of a savior on my side of one of these three guys, where he grabbed me, he threw me into the bathroom of this penthouse, yelled me, lock the door. So, I'm like, I locked the door, and I'm like pressing my ear up, trying to figure out what's going on. How am I going to get out of this? Him and I both knew if he didn't take action that his friends were going to rape me. It had escalated to that point of grabbing, throwing, and three men, I felt like, this is it. This is it.
But you feel unsafe, and this is
beyond.
You were like hanging out with these guys having fun, but then it like crosses the line to where you're in an unsafe situation.
Right. Half the conversations weren't in English. I didn't know what was going on. I could just feel, of course, what was being done to me and watch the interactions between them. And at the moment the guy grabbed me, it was a horrific, where the mind shoots itself forward as to, this is what's going to happen to me now. I'm creating what the scene is going to end up being. The short story is, I hear them having a conversation. I can understand parts of it. I hear casino, I hear roulette table, and then I hear them exiting. I don't know this fact, but the door closed really hard and loud. And I do believe it was that one guy giving me the signal that we're gone.
Get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was able to escape out from there, and all I knew was they went down, so I went up.
Other direction.
I
You're
went the other
gone.
direction,
Yeah.
yeah, just in case somebody wanted to come back. That was the shorter of the routes.
So you're on the rooftop and you have this epiphany of you don't want to be in this space. What happens next? Then you get out? Or
I'm having the epiphany of, I'm going to have to leave Las Vegas just because I'm seeing the writing on the wall that it is this environment that has caused me to be in the position I'm in. And obviously I haven't been wise enough, brave enough, there wasn't anything there to that point that really said, Sherry, this is the time. I had been in some other dangerous spots, but I could blow them off. And for whatever reason, timing is everything. This was the night, and I was scared beyond scared. I was realizing that it didn't matter how uncomfortable it was, that I'd already been through a lot of uncomfortable, and what was the best for me was to get out. And so that meant leaving Las Vegas and changing jobs.
Oh, and so that's when then you went and got a job and you retired and moved on and
then
lived
I
happily ever
retired.
after.
Then I retired.
No, that's not what happened.
No.
What happened next, Sherry?
Well,
You got out of the industry, right?
that wasn't comfortable enough.
Oh, tell me more.
So, the wisdom that came out from this, looking back, is that we can suck it up through a lot of discomfort. We can make excuses to just stay there because making another change is too uncomfortable. So I know this, I know you're an asshole, I know this is going to go wrong. So, but it's okay because I know that, and I'm just going to stay here. Well, this now became my entire being saying, let's do something else. And I listened to signs. I didn't put it that way then, but I followed certain paths that were put in front of me. So from that event on the rooftop, I stated, I need to move. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I got to get out of here. I had bills, I had car payment. I don't care. I got to figure this out. So I found an ad in a Penny Saver magazine. Those little Penny Saver newspapers, right?
Yep,
Like
those.
Candyman and all kinds of things.
Everything's there, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm walking out of the grocery store.
Tractors for sale,
I grabbed
sheep and cows. I got it,
Yeah, exactly. And Lord knows what I brought and grabbed that, but I did. And I remember sitting in a hot tub after working all night. And yes, doing that work.
You're still working,
yes,
okay.
I'm still
Girls
working.
gotta pay bills, keep going.
Still gotta pay bills. I'm sitting in this hot tub, and this little ad, it was like if in the movies industry, they would probably have like this background lighting that came up when, Sherry sees this. But so I see this ad, it pops out at me, and I moved to a small town called Winnemucca. It's still in Nevada. It is off an interstate. It's a ranch mining town. It's kind of catching travelers and truckers as they drive across country.
What's the motto for Winnemucca?
Winnemucca. Las Vegas has City of Lights. Winnemucca has where the fucka is Winnemucca.
I love it.
That's how small it was. Yeah. And my favorite story with this is that I'm driving into this town, and I'm saying to myself, like, there's nothing around. There's more glitter and sparkle in the back seat of my car on all of my Vegas dresses than there is in this entire town.
Oh,
and yet this is where is my new home.
Yeah.
So I found a room in a house.
Great.
Right?
Starting a new chapter in your life.
A new chapter.
Love it.
Well, my room is an office.
Okay.
And the house is a cat house.
Oh, okay. Keep going. So you're working in the cat house then.
So I went from Las Vegas to the cat house, and
now I would think that there's some structure there. There's some accountability. There's some like a system. Tell me about how that was.
That was my vision that I had on the rooftop. Is that I wanted safety. So here I am. I left dangerous Las Vegas. In this place, they cooked meals. There was a house mom, and we called her mom. So I had a bit of a feel of a family again.
Oh, you connection community.
Connection community.
Family.
They were there for me. Mom, if I needed to talk, I could go and, talk to her and cry on her shoulder or whatever. And it was a safe place. It was like my nervous system could kind of take a break.
Because you had a vigilance of, if I'm with a client, here's an epiphany from me that I've had on my journey is men are afraid that women are going to laugh at them. Ha, ha, ha. Whether they disrespecting their manhood or disrespecting who they are or what they do. Women have a different fear. They're afraid they're going to get murdered. That's a whole different subset. And men don't know that. When a man goes out with a woman, he's like, oh, I hope she doesn't make fun of me. And a woman's like, I hope he doesn't murder me. It's a total different paradigm.
Yeah.
And somebody taught me that. In fact, it was I went to a conference and I met a sex worker, and she said, this is the paradigm we're in. And it gave me a lot of understanding, a lot of compassion in that field. And I'm like, oh,
right.
So as a man, you have to be responsible for how you present yourself to make sure that someone feels safe. And it's not even in a physical, intimate, just as far as holding space.
Holding space.
Yeah.
In Las Vegas, I had a saying of, it was a version of The Price is Right for sex, because you didn't know what was behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. What condition of human were you going to find on the other side?
Is this guy a whack job or just a guy that needs connection?
Exactly.
That's
what was he
intense.
going to be asking? So every single moment you can imagine
Oh my
what,
God.
The preparedness that I had to have.
Did you have some harrowing experiences that you narrowly escaped?
A few. I learned that I have a way with words. I have a way with words. I have a very caring heart. My weapon, if you want to call it that, was caring. And so when I would get into situations where they were getting angry, or they wanted to not pay me, or they wanted to do some act with me, I could pretty much meet them on their level and then care. It would diffuse the moment. So I could escape. I could renegotiate the terms, let's say. In the brothel, they knew that there was controls in place. The men coming in the brothels were not going to be trying, anything. So
it seems like a safe place for you as a worker to be able to be there. And I imagine that's got to feel good to have some structure in place.
100%. I knew that we didn't have like buzzers or anything like that if I got in trouble, but the walls were thin enough that if I had an issue, that I would be protected.
It's like somebody's got your back right there.
Exactly. That's what I say and that was the ease and the calm, that I could be okay with what I was doing while I was there. And the men coming in, they just want caring. They want someone to hold them.
Yeah.
If I had to put a percentage down, this blows some my friends who, since I've started doing this talking thing and being upfront with it, 30% of the men coming in wouldn't even want sex. They just wanted to sit on the chair with me, have me being either held by them or I'm holding them, and we just have a conversation of what's going on.
Because human beings at their core, they want to be loved.
They want to be loved.
Wow.
And
so you were ability to be a loving space for them.
Yeah, it was an unbiased caring. Yeah. I didn't know them as a human in any other way. Perhaps that was the freeing part of it all, is that maybe if I knew them as a human, out in the streets, I wouldn't want to be friends with them. I wouldn't have. But here in this space, it was unbiased. It was, I'm here to care for you. I'm here to be there.
And they had a clean slate. Didn't matter whatever your background was. We're here. It's a presence practice, if you will.
Yeah.
This is all it is just you and me and this human connection. Yeah.
And you just said that was my next data point.
Oh, tell me more.
I learned that it goes beyond being used and misused and being someone else's service to being someone who is of service, because it's coming out of me, out of a place of love and a place of caring. And that my whole path had been laid out in a really perfect way for me to progress through all of these stages, because at this point now I understood who I was. I was okay being a prostitute. I understood the need for us. You know, these were, lonely truckers that spent, all of their days, or they were businessmen traveling across, and some of them were husbands whose wives were distant.
They shut. Yeah.
They shut them
They're
down.
like, I just want someone to see me.
Ask me how my day was. I'll pay you $300. Ask me how my day was.
Just see me. Oh,
See me.
wow.
See me. Yeah.
And how did that make you feel as a person? Did that make you feel good to be that space, or did you still feel like you were giving, or what was your...
No, I totally embraced the whole part and parcel of what it is when you're a prostitute and you see this giving, you see the benefit, you see the therapy, you see the saving that you have the capacity to do.
Yeah.
And I had fun with it too. Again, my vivacious personality came right in, and it wasn't a sad or bad time.
Yeah.
It is fondly looked upon by myself and my memory.
Yeah.
And I've not even thought about this until right now. It's really a freeing joy to be able to talk out loud about that time period.
Yeah. Well, there's so much shame. We've been given a religious narrative that said sex is bad and you're a bad person, and it's all this. There's so much of that religious narrative that I've had to grow out of around sexuality. And I think that, we have laws that say if you pay someone for sex, it's prostitute, you have to go to jail. And I'm like, I have such a resistance towards anything that is like, you're a bad person. You're a bad person because you did this thing. I have such a resistance to that, because that's what religion teaches us. You're bad and you have to be made good. Well, what if we're already fine, we're whole, we're perfect, but we're on this soul journey of learning to experience and explore and expand? What if it's about, I had an experience with another soul and we had intimacy and we had laughs? Why does that have to be wrong?
Exactly.
And I think that that's the joy space that you found that you were able to get into. I'm sure there's a shadow side of everything. I'm sure that you've expressed that you've had a lot of the shadow side of prostitution, but I'm sure there's a joy side too, a human connection side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you expressed it all so well.
Why, thank you. I'll drink to that.
The beauty of it being held in a space where you feel safe. So had I, perhaps even in Vegas, had a space that I consistently felt safe doing my work, it wouldn't have been that push. But I also wouldn't have lived that life and taken me on to the next step where I could embrace, all of the gifts that working in a brothel gave me, and really allowed me to do the work that I did, have fun doing it, and know that there's a benefit that these men that are coming by repeatedly,
And you had regular clients and people that you knew and you had connections with.
Yeah, we had a CB radio.
Oh, I remember that.
Remember the CB radio?
I do. My grandpa
Breaker 19.
Yeah, my grandpa had a CB, and we would have names. My name when I was a little boy was Chipmunk. That was my CB handle. It was a Breaker 19. My grandson's here. Say, hey, this is Chipmunk. I'm 6. Yeah, it was me.
Exactly.
What was your handle? Who were you?
I was just Jessie Love.
So fun.
Yeah, Jessie Love.
Yeah.
Wasn't too creative. With
Well, I don't know. Dukes of Hazzard, Uncle Jesse, he was fun, and Daisy Duke and Jessie Love. I like it.
I couldn't have kids, and I always thought that if I had a kid, I would name her Jessica, and I would call her Jessie. So that's
so beautiful.
That's how that came about.
Yeah. And you were loving, and then you're vivacious and sexy, and people love that.
Yeah.
So you're on the CB, you're getting clientele, you're interacting. How does that work?
I would have because all of the women would have favorites that would come in. So we would use the CB radio to kind of check in to see where our favorites were at. We would use the CB radio to create an interest, a curiosity. Back in the day, there was billboards actually for this as well. The tourists would come by, the fly fishermen tourist group and their little shuttle bus, like
here's the city center, here's the shopping mall, and here's the brothel.
Can we go in there?
Yeah.
Can we go in there?
I gotta ask, what were pricing? What would a gentleman spend in a session with a lady?
Well, it would vary. And a lot of the negotiations were, and as I understand still are, negotiated behind the bedroom door. So it wasn't like, a blowjob is blah, blah dollars. It would be a starting point.
Give me some ideas for numbers.
Fair enough.
What are people spending? Are they spending lots or,
for half an hour, it would be $100, $150. If you were lucky enough, which I've gotten a couple of those, it was called the Night on the Town, and the guy paid $1,200 to take me out. We'd go out to have dinner, we'd go to the casino, whatever he wanted to do out on the town. And it had to be somebody that the house felt safe with too. They had to have a bit of a history,
a little track record of being a cool person. So then you'd get to be a date, you'd have fun, and you'd go out and mess around. Plus you'd get money for that, plus you'd get a free meal and whatever.
And I had to face the public in this form.
How'd that make you feel?
Woo! We stirred up some stuff with that one. I was mortified. I had a 60 maybe some year old man and he was a very nice man, and I had no idea I was going to feel this way.
How old were you at the time?
20, young 20s.
Oh, wow.
Young 20s.
So you're with a person that's significantly older
that
than you.
wants to be affectionate.
In town, PDA in town? You're like, give me a kiss, baby?
Yeah. So I could set the stage for kissing, because that was even off line, even in the brothel. Like we really didn't do kissing. So, my favorite customers, they called me Angel. And it would be a pat on, you said the pat on the butt. Well, that was literally how we would say goodbye. It wasn't a kiss. It would be like all right, Angel, see you next time. All right, Big Iron.
Oh, so you pat him on the butt too.
Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah. Well, that was how I don't know how other women did it.
Yeah.
I wasn't behind. That was how Sherry rolled.
Yeah. Well, you kept your clientele.
Yeah. And they always, they felt good with it. But going out on the town with this guy it stirred up a whole lot of emotions. And
tell me about that.
I think there was no way, in the context of this town, Winnemucca was based upon its single casino and the brothels. I don't know what the population is, around 40,000. You had to have a population below a certain level to have brothels in your town. And so there was numerous brothels in Winnemucca, and true or not, I felt like the lights were always shining on me, that everyone knew, oh look, it's a hooker from the house. It's a hooker from the house.
That's what you think is happening.
Yes, what I think is happening. I go to the grocery store to buy condoms.
And they're like, I know what you're gonna do.
Right, that's a given. Anybody who goes in and buys a 100-pack.
100-pack? Holy smokes!
Yeah.
I mean, why would you buy a 10-pack? You buy a 100-pack. You know what I do for a living? Hello.
Yeah. So, and we went to the local casino. Yes, some people there might have known where I worked. I would say most probably didn't, but in my mind.
In your mind.
In my mind, it was. And I was 100% okay in the confines of the house, but not.
So now you're going out,
okay.
and now you're challenged with your identity. All right, so move me forward in this timeline. So you're in the brothel, you have clientele, you're meeting with people, you feel safe, someone's got your back. You love this industry, and you're now a rock star in this industry, and you stay in that, and then you retire Is that how that works? Or
Yeah,
how
I
does that
stashed
work?
away all that
You stashed
money
away all that money, right?
under the mattress, in the little brothel bedroom.
Are you still working in the brothel, or have you moved forward from that?
I have moved forward.
Okay.
These incidents that I talk about, going out on the date in the town, having the conversation about where things are going and the amount of work that I'm doing, they all became little seeds that sat and they germinated until I had a conversation which kind of brought them all together. It was my favorite client. His name was Big Iron.
Big Iron.
Big
Okay.
Iron, yes.
Is he a trucker?
Well, I think it was Marty Robbins
Marty
did a
Robbins?
song called Big Iron. And he quantified himself when he showed up, because I knew him as Big Iron from the CB radio. He walks in and we became very, very good friends. But his first time, he's like, I just want to let you know that Big Iron, it's really about the song. Because, he was pumping himself up that he had this very well-endowed body.
And you're going to find out
and I'm going to find out that that's not the case. But that's how he promotes it to his CD buddies,
He doesn't want to ruin his persona.
There's Big Iron here.
Yeah, but you're going to find out the truth.
Yeah,
so was he amazing? Was he huge? What was
he was not. He was wonderfully average. Wonderfully average.
And how did you make him feel, though, I bet?
Oh, we had a great friendship.
Yeah.
I mean, we really did. It became this really nice, beyond a friendship, it was a comfort.
Yeah.
It was a comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And we had great conversations. We would get into stories that we would crack each other up, because I like to think I'm a funny person as well. Sometimes my jokes don't land on everybody as well as they land in my head. But we would have a lot of fun. And I mean, we would laugh so hard they could hear us in the living room. The brothel, my living room brothel, had a huge Western bar. It was like Old West, like you'd see in the Clint Eastwood movies. There were a couple love seats and some pub tables, and that was kind of where people would hang out. We even had locals just come. It was like Cheers in a brothel,
cool.
where everybody knows your name.
Yes, it's community and connection.
Yeah. So miners work, crazy shifts. They don't have family. They're sending money back to their family wherever they are, and so they could come in here and they could talk business. They could, relate to other men from the community in there.
And there's no judgment because we're all here. We're just people. It's like church. I grew up in church community. It's a different setting, but it's still church community. I love that.
Yeah, it's just really supportive and really wonderful.
Yeah.
So, we're having a conversation this one afternoon, and it's about friendships. Mm-hmm. I just remember it because it was so perfect in the setup of the things that had happened to me prior, the going on the date out in town. Oh, there's something in me that's not as comfortable as I think. I'm not, I'm not identifying with that person when I am out there. I'm not feeling the comfort when I have to go out in town and have that identity put upon me. But yet I see the benefit of what I'm doing. And Big Iron is a perfect example of that. He looked forward to his cross-country trips when he would come through Winnemucca. So we're talking about friendships and old friendships and how friendships have come into play for the two of us. And things were welling up in me. And I'm still young. I haven't really investigated this thing called feelings and emotions and tracking.
Oh, I imagine you had to shut some stuff down.
Yeah. And so we're wrapping things up, and I asked him, could he see himself out? Because I'm starting to feel things. And he's like, of course I can, Angel. Classic, like I said, pats me on the butt. I patted him. He let himself out. And then the full-on download of where things had been, where things were going, the talking. I say this was the moment that I heard this constriction in my chest that I kept saying and talking about was my heart. And it was going, hey, hello, can we do something different? Can we have a conversation here? And it just blew me open to the realization that even when I was on that rooftop in Las Vegas and I was feeling that tightness and that, can I do this? Where am I going? I don't know, but I know I have to. That all came from the heart. And in this very direct moment, sitting at the end of the bed in my brothel bedroom was my heart asking me to keep going. And the way I felt it was, you were here to be born, you were born worthy to be a person on this world. What that looks like for each of us, I say, is very individual. For me, it was asking me to keep going. It was saying, to be born worthy of the person you were here to be means you need to keep going. This is not your last step. And it forced me to identify with the fact that, yes, this period of time had set me into a place of comfort and calm. It had been a relief from all the dangers of what Las Vegas was, and that now I was actually ready to change jobs.
Wow.
And I say it wasn't, really very clearly here, it was not that that path hadn't been worthy. It was not that being a prostitute wasn't worthy. It was that for me, the path had to keep going. And that would be honoring who I was here for. So
you've got work you do in the world. I wrote some notes that I thought really impacted me. You talk about our choices come from a place of desire, and we have a desire to move from one space to the next. So talk about desire, because sometimes desire moves us and we don't get the outcome we thought we would, but because that desire moved us forward, we find ourselves shifting, whether it's a relationship or a job or something.
yeah,
Talk
this
about
is that discomfort I felt beyond my heart talking to me, which it was. The heart is a compass. The heart is a navigation tool.
I love that.
And if you sail your own ship by that navigation, you're never going to get led wrong. You may have to travel through dry deserts, stormy seas, but it's not the wrong path. It's still taking you and guiding you. And as a human, we get resistant, and maybe we don't full on answer that. So if we look at that rooftop, reflecting back now, my heart was asking me, I'm done with this. Let's do something else. Let's find something different.
Yeah.
But I wasn't ready for that full bore change. What was my vision? I want safety. I want to have a relief from this non-going knock on a door, hesitation and fear of what's going to be on the backside of it. The brothel was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And perhaps the universe gave me lots of other choices before I found that little advertisement, but none of them felt right. If I had had the same that I saw when I saw that little advertisement, I was like, this is it. You know, maybe this somebody in line next to me at the grocery store was going to offer me a job doing something, but I wouldn't hear it. And they could have said something to somebody else that I didn't hear because I wasn't ready for it. So that's, the heart is going to lead us. The heart is always going to be that compass that takes us to the next place. And what I found is all the stumbles, the falls, the trips, getting back up, it created more faith that I could fuck up and I'd be okay.
I love that.
Compassion and forgiveness.
Yes.
Compassion, make the choice. Forgiveness, oh, that one didn't go so great. Let's do another one.
Yeah. And the most important person you need to forgive is yourself, because too many times we're like, oh, I'm bad, I'm unworthy. To forgiveness.
To forgiveness.
And it's no, you got to drink. But it's so important that here we spend our time thinking we're supposed to forgive other people, but yet we hold these things against ourselves. The most important person you need to forgive is yourself, because you are worthy.
Right. Tough love. As society knows tough love, it's the parent or the spouse putting restrictions, confinements on that person that they love more than anything else in the world. Tough love, take that to you. Can you say that with unwavering love for yourself that you will do certain actions that are meant for your highest well-being? And we are kind of taught that we're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to love ourselves. We're not supposed to.
That is so good. That's that narrative a lot of us were given in a religious context that says you're not supposed to love yourself, you're supposed to love God. And so then you're like, oh, that means then since I'm not worthy. And it's just that perpetuating thing. But if you're part of the oneness of all, and you're part of Godhood itself, as a conscious, aware entity, here to have experiences, of course you're supposed to love yourself. And we don't want to swing the pendulum so far that you're a narcissist, that you only love yourself and screw everybody else.
No.
That's the shadow side of that. But we can, because I love myself, now I can love other people. And that's that healthy side of that.
It is, at some point in my life, there were random times I would get a card. I would leave one job and go to someplace else, and the employees would write, "You're such a light. We're going to miss you." People would say, "Oh my God, we love it. Sherry's on the team. She's such a light when she walks in the room." And I kept hearing this. I'm a light. I'm a light. I'm a light. I'm a light. What the hell are they talking about? And it's only been in the last 5 years that I've learned what that is. It's because I've turned that mirror to myself. It's interesting. I feel like I could cry. I turned that mirror to myself to see I'm worthy, that by owning everything that's happened to me in my life, all of those data points, the outliers, whatever they are, it's a complete life.
Yeah.
And by being me, it opens me so that others see me. And I don't have to say one word about, no one knew these parts of my life existed. They knew me as a physical scientist, a person who did environmental work, a person who worked, they didn't know that and they didn't need to. They felt me. Because when you own all of those pieces of you, you can be felt. When you own all those pieces, you become a light. When you own all those pieces, you become the light that others feel and see that there's potential for them, and they feel good being around you. And it creates that whole healthy effect. So you're not being selfish, you're helping and rising others by just turning that mirror and saying, I'm okay. Look at me.
Beautiful. I think that's the biggest takeaway I have from your work, is that mirror, turn it to yourself and say, I love you. And that's the biggest thing people need to do, is they're like, I love everyone else. I love God. I love my family. I love whatever. Turn that mirror and say, I love you. And that's the hardest thing for some people to do.
It is. And like I said, nobody needs to know all those things that you felt weren't lovable about you. Nobody needs to know the stories behind them. You just own it. And when you own it, you live it.
Yeah, well, there's power in your pain. So when you take that presence of who you were and you use that story and you say, this is who I've become because of that, then you take your pain and it becomes your power.
Right. I have a term I coined, dark wisdom.
I love it. Tell me more.
Dark wisdom is exactly what you were just saying. When you have moments that were traumatic, they were painful, embarrassing, things that you did that were shameful, and it is a clarity when you see that all of those elements gave you gifts. It gave you a perspective of compassion. It gave you a sense that I survived that. Therefore, at some point, I'm a hero in my own little world. I've survived that. It gives you a sense of triumphant success. And so I call it shining the light on those shadows. We take those things, we've stuffed them in our proverbial basement of ourself, and when we allow them out, they become this really strong foundation. Someone who has experienced jail time, has experienced abuse, has experienced the effects of alcoholism in their house, they know things that another person doesn't know. They know what it feels like. They know the experience. They have expanded themselves a little bit further than someone else has. And that creates a capacity that you need to love. You can own it, and yeah, there's other layers and levels that we have to deal with, but that's the big thing, is like to understand that this dark wisdom is there to serve you, and it needs to get incorporated with everything else.
Yeah.
And when you become a whole person, that means that you're owning all of those things.
You know, I want to give presence to that. We had talked about what would we name this episode, and we talked about, well, could we say from whore to whole? And it felt like that was a pejorative term, and then we were like, that's a great WW. You know, it's a fun play on words, but we both weren't comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And I think it's because being a sex worker doesn't have to be shrouded in shame. It can be shrouded in compassion. It can be shrouded in love. And it's certainly not a paradigm that is easy for society to accept, because there's a shame paradigm on that. How do you contextualize? Are you still in the industry? Do you still work through that? Or are you doing other things in life? Where's Sherry now? How does your life, because I don't want to leave the viewer hanging to where you were in the brothel. Then what happened? Are you still there?
Right.
Give a little presence about where you're at.
So there was about 30 years of life traveling. I got jobs. I was mildly successful in various things. I got back into drugs. Maybe there was a tough time. I fell back on stripping. They did minimize over the years, and I am proud to say that in 2014, at the age of 50, I walked the stage at Cal State San Marcos.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
I got a bachelor's of science in biological studies. I went from high school dropout to 3 years of calculus and 2 years of organic chemistry.
Well, those are hard classes. I took biology and I had
Mm-hmm.
some of those things, and those are not dum-dum classes. So you're not a dum-dum, apparently.
Yeah, right. Data point.
Yeah.
Data point. Yeah, I remember the moment I was doing some derivations and I was having a glass of wine. I'm like, look, I'm drinking and deriving.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That is awesome.
But anyway, so
That's fun.
it was a period of figuring who I was out. I'm not a prostitute. I'm not a sex worker at this point. I fully support everything they did. I have been there. I've lived it. I see the benefits. I see the power that they have to create the shift in one human's life. And bringing that back to circle to when you own what you've done in your life, how you can become that light. Well, that's what we would put out into the world. You know, we would have weary travelers, lonely, husbands coming in, needing connection and leaving feeling more light and lively than themselves. So they would go out into the world and be that. And I am fortunate to say that I have a wonderful job. I work for the Department of Defense. I have my current job is a physical scientist, and I do environmental compliance coverage for the various missions that are going on.
It's pretty intense, pretty scientific, and pretty technical work then.
The passion comes back to the environment. I found I had a really nice knack for understanding the elements of that before I had gone to college. Data point.
Data point. Yeah, I love how you give presence to that.
Yeah, it's I'd be doing a job and somebody didn't show up one day, and I said, I'll do it. And I volunteer myself into places, and it shows a place of learning, and it makes me it made me then a more full, knowledgeable person that I could hop into different places, and it made me somebody who was valuable in the workforce. So I learned a lot of different things that I can apply all at once. And I'm very successful and have a wonderful life. And my mission at this point is to really serve and to alleviate pains that are out there in our communities.
Yeah. So to that point, you've started some coaching with people too, and I like how some of the things that you were taught was prostitution taught you that we are all equal if we just care about each other, and the data points that we have in our life. If we can remove the emotional impact from them, we can really step back and see how our life is guided and directed through what that soul journey needs to be. And things are really important to me is the soul journey. Oh my God, that's all we're here to do, is have this human experience to grow and expand that soul. I don't believe that you get one little lifetime and then that's it. There's some judgment at the end. That was the narrative I was given. I've done so much work and study, and whether it's near-death experiences or my own personal experiences and ayahuasca or hypnotherapy or these visceral visuals that I've had to realize, oh, there's so much more going on here. This is the soul journey. We're here to grow, experience, explore, and expand. And, I appreciate the data point. I love how you do that, because I've seen life as, like a river, and you can branch out and go that way or this way, and we have free will and choices, and we meet partners, and we have all these experiences. Fascinating journey that you've had, and you've learned so much. And now you're helping to take this knowledge and help other people on their pathway.
Yeah, letting go. There's a whole lot that's encompassed in letting go. It is being able to let go. You don't want to forget that the thing happened. You want to own that it happened, and you need to let go of the emotions that carry with it. And it's not saying that, when I let go of the family member who molested me at 4, that I condoned his actions. I just no longer allowed that to impact me. It didn't take one time. His impacts to me were far-reaching, and they come at the weirdest times, even in my life today, where something can trigger a pleasurable experience to my body. I look at it, and I've had the years of practice to say, I'm not going to let that experience, I'm not going to let the event color my pleasure in this moment. The same thing with episodes with the first husband. It was coaching the people to see that they can let it go, and it honoring them, and letting go brings their power, their self, their presentness in the world, to be here and now, and to see that event created an expansion in them that is to be valued. And it's having tough dialogues with my clients, because there's nothing you can say that's going to offend me. Bring that tough dialogue that you're dealing with in your life, and let's talk about it. Bring that tough dialogue and let me work with you to shift how that is coming to you, to shift how that narrative looks, to shift the visual that you may even have that accompanies it.
So if somebody wants to do work with you, how do they get in contact with you? Do you have a business set up? How does that work?
I do. My business that I have is called Wisdom's Gateway. So you can go to wisdomsgateway.com. You can go to Sherry@wisdomsgateway.com, and you can send me an email. I offer free introductory coaching sessions so we can see if we're a good match, how things, kumbaya between us. And that's, we can just decide what's the best program and come up with what is something that works for you that you're looking for.
Wonderful. If someone's watching this today and you want them to have one thing, I want you to know this one thing, what would that be for you?
To own all the pieces of your life, that wisdom and completeness come from combining the data points of pain, trauma, shame, to all of the fun, joy, laughter. It makes a mesh, and you are incomplete if you're leaving these dark pieces out here. And you don't have to tell anyone about these dark pieces to bring them together. What you'll experience when you do that is the complete wholeness that you can show up with in the world.
Yeah, beautiful.
Own your whole self.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here, and to the journey.
Good timing, because I'm almost out.
Thanks for joining us here on Exploring the Human Journey. You can find us as a video on YouTube or listen to us as a podcast. You can also join in the conversation by following us on Facebook and Instagram. For more information, go to the website at exploringthehumanjourney.com.